So Cindy wants to come up, and if you want to talk a little bit about the good things, the bad, the ugly, what's worked well, and just kind of talk them through why you picked your high tunnel, why you picked your raspberries, what's worked well for you, what's worked not so well, what do you advise other people to do if they want to do something similar.
Okay. Well, it all started out with just, I guess, putting the aronia berries, and we decided to go ahead, and Gary and I, to put in a little bit of an orchard, and we could start going to farmers markets and stuff, and maybe sell some aronias there, and then some other stuff too. And I put in the raspberries, and they just get going in September, and the last 2 years we had a frost, like within the second and third week of September, and I tried putting the sprinklers on, and that lasted like 3 or 4 different frosts. Then they started getting mushy after that, So one thing I said, well, maybe I should do like a high tunnel, and then the Specialty Crops block grant came out, and just the fluke, I said, well, I'm going to put in for this grant, I thought there's no chance I'm going to get it. And then Stacy called and said, oh, you're one of the ones that got it. I go, you're kidding. So anyway, the whole idea is to hopefully extend the crop. So I should be able to get, raspberries up until the first part of November with this. From everything I've looked at with Cornell University and, different things too. And then talking with Joyce and Paul Sears.
Joyce Sears.
Yep. They have a tunnel down there that they've been using now for 2 or 3 years, I think. And they think they're really doing a good crop in there. And because just out there now, even though it has been decent weather, that stuff is really getting buggy, and stuff's just starting to really attack it. And in here, you don't really notice that. And I guess some of the thinking to be viewed with the tornado did drop. This happened before we started tonight, the little tornado. The first thing was, I guess, deciding what to put up. And I knew I wanted it to last a long time, because, maybe if the raspberries didn't work, then I wanted to be able to do something else. But so far the raspberries look like they're going to work, and I want to make sure that extends for as long as possible. And I wanted this to last as long as possible. And there is a 5-year guarantee on the plastic, and then I don't know how long on the rest of it. But the guy that put it up, he puts up your regular hoop buildings for the farmers. And he said this is one of the strongest structures he's seen that he didn't think, as far as for something like this. So he was pretty impressed with it, so that made me feel good. And then with Stacy's direction too, as far as how to do things. So I wanted the big doors to be able to get the airflow through, because I didn't want to get any molds or mildews or anything like that. And so that's why I wanted this oversized door. And I had to redo it. Decided that that's what they came in, the frames and everything now are metal on those. Too much fun putting these up. Let's see, the good. Yes. As far as some bad, I wasn't able to get the plants out, dug out last year, and then I had to wait for them to come up this year to be able to move them into the tunnel. And we had the late season in there, and it was so cold that they just didn't want to come up out of the ground. And finally, when they did, I put some in here, and then I got busy with other stuff, so it's got to be later and later and hotter. So that's why I'm thinking that these over here didn't do so well. That these didn't come up. And these on this side are the Carolines, and they just get so much bigger, and I really like them a lot. These over here, I can't remember if these were the Polanas or the Polkas that I took out, because I raised both. I have like 5 different types, I think. I have the Anns, which are the golden ones, which I really like those too. And then the Autumn Britons are another one. And then the Jewel Blacks are my summer raspberry. And then I have a purple one for the summer one. The Polka, the Polana, the Carmine, or the Carolina. And then I did put in some Canby that are and then I have Joe Jays that are still out there too. So I do want to, I think, maybe in this one just make the whole thing the Carolines, except for that row I want to make the Anns, or the yellow ones. That's what I'm planning on. And then over there I'll decide what I want to put in that one. Maybe some of those others. did, and we live here together, and we were putting all this together. It's been going pretty good. It's a lot of work. I guess I'll take some questions. This is through Farm Tech, and I think there's some catalogs out over in the High Tunnel.
That's a good question. There's a lot of suppliers for tunnels. I don't recommend any particular company, but you do need to be cautious with when you're working with any company. Ask a lot of questions, and if you don't get answers like you feel you should, then I'd be cautious about what you're going to get. There's a good group of tunnel. I mean, Farm Tech has some nice structures. There's Polytech's up in Minnesota, makes a nice one. Stuppy's down in Kansas City. Nexus over in Arvada, Colorado. However, we've run into a couple vendors that are mom and pop type operations, and when you start seeing hand drawings of what you're going to get, I would get a little nervous because we've had a couple people that have built those structures and they've had various issues, missing parts, misunderstandings. Stuppy's, on the other hand, you'll always get stamped engineering drawings, and same with Nexus Corporation, but with it comes a price. So you just got to kind of weigh what you're getting. For those of you that are interested, when we eat dinner, I have a couple things that I put together that kind of help you work your way through it. Talking about steel sizes, trusses, wind bracing, metal thicknesses. It's a layman's guide that if anybody's interested, you're welcome to just glance at it, because if you don't understand what some of this means, it's important to me that you do apples to apples comparison, because if Sandy gets a figure for $8,000 for a unit and somebody else comes in and says, oh, I can do it for $4,300, there may be a reason, and if she can look at the bill of goods and see what it is, that might help. So I'll have those over here. You don't have to take them. They're not professionally printed. They're just something I put together that I thought would help some people as they're evaluating this. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I was going to say too that very different underlying water systems. We've got two different water lines that come up. One is takes care of the one side. So over here we got we used to have a trailer house down below with a house well there. He works for a guy that does directional horizontal drilling, so we borrowed it and ran up through that shelter valve down the ground and put a line in there, and then we have another water line that comes up to water. All of these rows over here, and then we have two lines in here. One that comes from one that runs out to the stock tank, so I can have it in the winter time. And the other one, we got three lines on one, and just on the other that have the water line over here, I guess, and over there too. So I can water this, and we'll shut the one down though when it does start freezing. That, like I said, I'll have the other one for hand watering.
Does this keep the field?
As far as we've got fence. Anything else? Yes.
Yes, since we just heard some inclement weather, tornadoes or something up in Knox County, are these insurable against tornadic winds and so forth?
No, the only thing you can insure this for, anyway, through the companies that I tried checking, was for flood or fire.
There actually is a company that insures greenhouse and floral people, but it's a specialty insurance, and I don't remember what the company's name is, but you should be. I would think you can be able to search it out, but I'm sure it's probably not the least expensive insurance either.
Well, it is. There's a lot of technicalities in the insurance business. I've learned over the years what those are.
Right. I know I was working with Guaranteed Insurance in Lincoln, Nebraska, because they were thinking about developing an ag building type of insurance policy, and I was advising them. They were wondering about construction and all that.
The problem is, as I said, there's a lot of companies out there and they're not all engineered the same. Where a regular building typically is engineered for particular building codes. This particular one that she has probably would meet building codes, but for most ag applications, people don't bother to look at building codes. And that's where the insurance industry is really having a hard time with these. So you're pretty much self-insured on it. The only insurance you would have is probably liability in case the thing picks up and nails somebody's house down the way.
I don't have to worry about that, I don't think.
Well, I was just wondering because things like this are the first thing
Not necessarily. If you go to the, I'm from near Hallam, Nebraska, which wiped out our entire school system and took a pretty big swath. And a matter of fact, last night took some more. If you go on to it's the National Weather Service site, type in Hallam tornado, look at the stumpy greenhouse that still was sitting there after the tornado, and look at the school buses smashed everywhere. It's an amazing thing for them.
I've been through 2 tornadoes in the last 5 years. And I know what sets and what don't set.
Right.
It's strange how it works.
Yes.
The issue is, the plastic's gone, you have the structure, there's really nothing there
To catch it.
to
Yeah.
catch it. So, like Stacy says, oftentimes the greenhouse will stand as long as it's well engineered, not a piece of junk.
Well, I'm dealing with a grower right now we'll have a site visit next year. I was aghast because it was the same company as this one, and the steel pipe they got was 1.66 inch diameter, which is nothing more than the conduit top rail they use on chain link fencing. Same company offering such a wide variety of structure, and that's the one that pushed on us a week ago in a wind. This one here, though, wouldn't do it. So it's really wild what is out on the market.
That's almost a cold frame.
Well, it is a cold vein.
Yeah.
Where I live, there was 2 roof-barn structures. They're like for homes. They still, 2 years ago, one tornado took, but the confinement right behind it was all cement structure. Just wiped it out. That was right next to it, just like from here to there.
One thing I do want to make a quick point of, I'm not an engineer, but the goal is, you remember me talking about the concrete boots these have. Lift, I've always been taught by the engineers at the university and other places, lift is our greatest detriment. Anybody that's been around the farm where they saw the barn doors blow open and explodes the barn, it's because the wind got inside and didn't lift. And the same thing will be for these. If the wind gets in these doors, so Sandy's got these heavier duty doors, the goal is not to get wind in there. But if it does go through, hopefully it'll blow through the other end, because if it catches on the other end, it'll just blow the house apart. So, yeah, we're not totally immune to having severe weather.
In fact, my contractor told me that after tonight's session, he didn't get that tunnel over there finished yet, but he said he's just got the plastic across the north end. He said go over and cut out a hole in that doorway. With some wind coming
It'll just go
through.
through, yeah.
I'm sorry, I came late, but you're calling these tunnels and not greenhouses.
Right, it's not heated, other than by the sun. So yeah, it's not a greenhouse, and it's a different structure. Just
It's a tunnel,
yeah,
okay.
a high tunnel.
High tunnel.
Electricity, no heat.
It's because of the heating issue, and I don't know, Vaughn, do you know what the exact figure is? It 50 degrees or 55 degrees? Once it is heated above, I think 55 degrees or 50.
Yeah, I think it's 50.
Once it's heated above 50 degrees Fahrenheit, it's considered a greenhouse, and then it has to fall under the uniform building codes. So that's why it's always been a fuzzy thing, and I need to look that up.
And
But
historically also,
supplemental heat, yes.
historically also, although it's changed, until last year, if there was electricity, it could not be considered a high tunnel in the federal government's programming. So, but that has recently changed within the last year that you can now have electricity. But even if you ran an extension cord out here to run a heater, if you got a federal grant that paid for that, you would be outside the grant rules and you would potentially have to repay the money. So,
Vaughn brought up an interesting thing that just popped in my head. Sandy's a lawyer, and she works full-time as a lawyer, right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Sure.
So some of you probably have it in your head, I have a high tunnel at home, and when I left the house this morning, it was 28 degrees. Being Nebraska, though, it got to be 58 degrees, and my high tunnel is now 125 on the inside. So Sandy has to leave her law practice, drive out here, walk through the mud in her dress and high heels, right?
And dogs.
and open this up. I'm being silly, but honestly, I worked for the university and I had my own greenhouse business, and that would happen to me. So I'd call my wife, say, "Can you go out and open it up?" So this is drama all of us deal with. And Vaughn brought up a great point about electricity. They did change that to where she could automate her roll-up walls. They now offer roll-up walls. However, Sandy doesn't want to spend $10,000 to get electricity from up by the road to back here. So they now have some really nice solar-operated equipment. Not exhaust fans, but they have the battery-powered roll-ups. It's a one-event thing. In other words, it uses just enough power to roll the thing up and it stops. And when the thermostat says it's getting too cool, it'll roll down. The price wasn't that bad. I think it's called Advancing Alternative Energy.
Yeah.
You can look them up on the website. I go to Ohio Short Course every year. I got a price for high tunnels. I'm talking $1,000 for a high tunnel to do that. Sounds like a lot, but maybe it's not, because she's a lawyer making $85 an hour, right?
Okay.
But the truth of the matter is, all of you farmers, the way you make money is by growing crops, doing your job, and not spending a lot of time babysitting. So I see this as a great option in the future, that we can put some automation in there to help improve our productivity. That way we don't have to have somebody babysitting the house.
They've actually come up with small gable fans that are now solar. I just saw those, which can help reduce the heat a little bit, but does not do the job of a full-size fan and vent system.
Yes, but it's now it has that cold yet. I'll check which way the winds come from when I leave in the morning, and then I'll shut one of these doors and leave the other one open. Yeah, and maybe crack that back. Or else if it's really cool or something, I'll just keep it cracked open, not that horrible. So just go inside the catch here. Well, then my plan too, which really has nothing to do with the high tunnel, but the bumblebees are on any pollinator in here, and I have some wasps too, and different flies and that. But when I finally get these finished, I'm going to go ahead and between the two of them, I'm going to put in all kind of beneficial plants or your pollinator, attractants, and start an area in there to put the plant on. So put a little pond for the toads and everything, the butterfly bushes and some other native plants in there too. So that's another plan I have. I've got all the plants. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, if I'm going to plant them yet this fall or not, or try to hold them open. And eventually I want to get weed garden here, put it down. Right now this weird little mossy stuff for weed came up. And I want to make a nice cushion in there, and for those berries that don't go up to the wire, it's something that keeps them off the dirt. So I don't know what that weed is. Like I said, I've just been letting it grow because it's, and it had little blooms, little white blossoms on it too, so I thought, well, it's drawing maybe more beneficials in there, I don't know. But that will eventually go, and I'll put the weed garden. And probably a little piece on the outside of each shed too, just far enough for the weeds and stuff where you can't mow to it,
Sandy brought up a really nice point about beneficial insects. Sometimes you want to use bee pollinators. For those of you that are organic growers, perhaps you don't want to spray any more pesticides than you want to or have to. They offer insect screening that you can put on. So even though she makes this open air, if she wanted to, she could put this insect screening on. They have different densities of it, so we can prevent thrips from getting in the house, or aphids, or we can keep our pollinators in if we wanted to. I only wanted to bring that up because if you're considering it, make sure you read the information really closely, because the more dense that netting is, insect netting is, the more it'll restrict air movement through your house. I managed the greenhouses at UNL for a number of years, and we used to do some bean research. A bean crop for us would last about 16 weeks. We would spray around 12 times to keep the insects at bay. We did put insect netting over our structure because the time that we're going to have the most insect problems in our house is when the temperatures are like this, when it's getting cold, when all this is starting to turn brown, and she's got these delicious looking these delicious plants in here. The insects are going to want to go in there. So when we use the insect netting, we actually went from that 12 pesticide applications down to maybe 1 at the most, just because we could prevent those insects from coming in. But keeping in mind, when you do that, you do reduce the amount of air movement through that structure. So.
And we are in the transition to organics, so we're not
Can you talk a little bit about the marketability of your raspberries and what areas you might be able to market them to and sell them?
right now, production isn't great enough to get enough quantity at one time. I talked with Doug over in Norfolk at the year-round market there, and he said, I'd be glad to have taking a load over there. I have to have a load to be able to go over. But so far, I've just been selling to friends and family, some of the local markets, and everyone seemed pretty excited about it, and then co-workers and such too. I haven't really had enough time getting rid of them, and I'm actually trying to hold them back myself because I do want to do make some jams and jellies and some different recipes. So I want to try to be able to sell that too. So there's some value added with the raspberries too. But as far as I've heard, like I said, I think everybody's interested in that problem.
That's good. And then with this, these beetles here, this is, have you noticed these beetles?
Yeah, that's something. Ropes, pull them up. Have you been in there lately?
No. Is there lots of tomatoes in there?
Yes, and I ate one. I got part of it in the fridge at the shop yet. Oh man, this is the most great tomato. Awesome.
Yeah.